All right, so continuing our conversation on third parties, um, just to continue from the last video, when we talk about third parties, what we're really talking about are any party other than the two major parties. So anything other than Republicans and Democrats. That could be a communist party, a socialist party, the two most prominent ones are the Libertarian Party on the far right and the Green Party on the far left. And the thing about third parties that you have to understand is that you can win political office as an independent or as a third party member. It is possible, historically, it has been done. Um, with this where we're at now politically, it's very difficult to do, but you can win office as a third party. It's your journey is just harder. And we've never had a third party actually win the presidency. We've had third parties that have picked up electoral votes, meaning they've won states. But historically speaking, the Electoral College makes it very, very difficult for third parties to actually win the presidency. So one of the reasons why the Republicans and Democrats are always so dominant is that the Electoral College and the way the system is set up really does make it easier for two parties to compete against each other. And if you're a third party, it's harder for your voice to get heard. Um, Third parties, however, can change the outcome of elections. We saw that when Woodrow Wilson was running as the Democratic nominee against the Republican President Taft and the Republican former President Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt actually ran as a third party candidate under the Bull Moose Party. And between Roosevelt and Taft, they split the Republican vote, and that led to Woodrow Wilson becoming president. Now, keep in mind, that was the early 1900s. You also have situations where in the year 2000, Ralph Nader was running for president, and said that he took votes away from Al Gore as he was running for the Democratic nominee, and maybe actually affected the election because Florida then went to President Bush instead of Al Gore, and President Bush won the election. So third parties can act as what we call spoilers. And third parties can often use their influence to push forward a position and force the other two major parties to talk about that issue. Um, when Ross Perot ran for president in 1992, his big thing was focusing on the economy, balancing the budget, keeping government spending under control, and he focused on it so much that the Republican President George H.W. Bush and the Democrat Bill Clinton had to actually respond and start talking more about the economy because Ross Perot was pushing the issue so much. So, absolutely, third parties can matter, third parties can influence elections, but where we see the most success with third parties is really at the local and the state level. It is a lot easier for a third party to win a city council seat or a school board trustees run than it is to win the governor's office, than it is to win the presidency. We have had third party candidates win governor's offices. In Minnesota, Jesse Ventura ran under the Reform Party and became governor of California. So it's possible. It's just very, very difficult, especially related to the presidency. So, why would you actually want to support a third party? The beauty of our political system is that your vote is not guaranteed to go to anybody except who you want it to go to. Republicans and Democrats are not entitled to your vote. They are supposed to earn it every election cycle. And so a lot of people vote third party for a lot of different reasons. Maybe there's a charismatic third party leader that's emerged and you really want to support this leader. There are a lot of people, politicians, who have gathered a following that is so large that if they were to run for office under a third party label, those followers would vote for that person. So a charismatic leader always helps to galvanize a third party. Another reason that people vote third party is because they are ideologically purists. They don't want to compromise their beliefs. And here's what you have to understand. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are coalitional parties, meaning they are groups of different factions. The Democratic Party has the labor unions, it has younger voters, it has what we would call social justice warriors, those that are more focused on identity politics. Those are different factions within the Democratic Party, as well as like the moderate corporates, if you will. The Republican Party has the Christian right, the religious conservatives. They've got the more defense-oriented nationalist wing. They've got the more free market business side. But again, those are our coalitions. The third parties are more ideologically driven. And you would support a third party if you care more about voting your conscience and voting your ideology than voting just to see one side win. Many times people know they're voting third party. That when they vote third party, they know that their candidate is not going to win. But they feel so strongly that they want to make sure that their vote reflects their conscience. And who knows? Every election is an opportunity to grow your base so that maybe what's considered a fringe party in one election might build up enough support so that the next election or the election after that, they're viable. And the only way that they're viable is that enough people will actually vote for them. And then some people vote for third parties because they just don't like the two major parties. And there are substantial differences between Republicans and Democrats. But for some people, all they see are Republicans are controlled by corporations and Democrats are controlled by corporations, or Republicans are liars and Democrats are liars. But all they see is this dissatisfaction and the fighting, so much so that it drives people away from third parties. And understand, whatever reason you have for voting for a candidate or for your particular party, whether it's the major party or the minor party, your reason is your own, and your reason is a valid reason. So, just to end this up, let's ask the question, why don't people like American political parties? Americans tend to have a strong dissatisfaction with things that are government and party related. One big issue is that the partisan fighting is often what's highlighted the most in the media. When we see the fighting on social media, on Twitter, on the news, you just see the different sides throwing political barbs at each other. If you're an American citizen, you might start to feel, well, where do I fit into this picture? Or they care more about scoring points than actually helping Americans. Another reason why political parties might not be liked is because right now we're at a position where there's not much compromise. There are very few issues where Republicans and Democrats are willing to come together and compromise and work to find a solution that everyone can agree on. There just aren't that many issues related to that right now. And so when they're so ideologically apart and there's a lack of compromise, it does feel like government moves very, very slowly. Whenever you have a period of divided government where one party has, say, the White House and another party has either the House or the Senate or sometimes both. But as long as it's not one party having all three branches, that's divided government. And divided government makes policy go very, very, very slow. And we don't like very, very slow policy because it makes us feel like government isn't doing anything. So there are a lot of reasons why Americans don't like political parties. As I mentioned just a minute or two ago, a lot of people feel like both political parties are just only care about corporate interests and don't care about what we call Main Street or common American interests. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of reasons why people don't like American political parties. The thing we have to realize, though, is that you really can't get rid of them, and that's important. Political parties may fade away, but another one's just going to into its place. Political parties are naturally occurring in most democracies, and even authoritarian societies will claim a political party. For example, the communists that run China, that's a political party. So you can't really get rid of them. And we wouldn't know how to have a national government without it because we've never really had one. And the last thing it's important to remember is that political parties, their positions on issues will change over time. The Republicans of today have very little to do with the Republicans of 60 years ago or 100 years ago. And the Democrats of today have very little to do with the Democrats of 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Party positions and beliefs will change over time, even though labels may not. So that's very important. If you get into a position where you're trying to compare a current political party with a previous iteration of it, you may be talking about two different political parties even though they have the same name. And that's where your book gets into this question of the idea of realignments and de-alignments. Party power and party positions will shift over time. Well, I hope these videos have been helpful. It's just a quick look at political parties. And again, I'm available if you have questions. Don't hesitate to email me, reach out to me on Google Hangouts. I'm here to help you if I can clarify anything else. Happy studying. See you later.